Welcome to Built to Scale, hosted by myself, Scott Wilcox from WBuild, where we craft some of the world's finest homes. And Matt Parrott from BuildPass, he's on a mission to build the world's smartest operating system for construction sites. We're two Aussie founders with global ambitions in business, technology, AI, and robotics. Every week, we're going to distill a broad set of intelligent insights into founder-driven takes that elevate your edge. Listen in to get our Aussie lens on the global playing field for anyone keen to stay ahead. Or in short, for those who refuse to be left behind. And then a personal story, probably getting too close to home. I think I actually got in trouble for talking to her, just sitting waiting for my in bed the other night. My wife's like, "Who are you talking to?" And I'm like, "It's a bot. It's a bot. It's okay."
Doesn't make it any better, Scotty. Doesn't make it any better.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Built to Scale. Maddie, great to see you again.
Likewise, Scotty. Good to see you up and early in Melbourne. Sun is about to come through. Excited to record this. Let's go.
This week, we are just going to deep dive straight into the Robotics Rundown because every week it seems to be gathering more and more momentum, and you and I are becoming slightly obsessed.
Oh, yeah.
What have you seen in the space this week?
Yeah, well, I think we've been pumping up the tires of our man, Mr. Adcock of Figure AI. So for those who haven't listened to the previous episodes, Brett Adcock is the CEO of Figure AI, a humanoid robot company, and they are what would seem to be just on fire at the moment. So a really impressive guy and impressive company, very good at marketing, but essentially they have just been releasing drop after drop of what they're doing with humanoid robots, and it seems to be becoming like the trend, like that is going to happen. We've talked about the fact that humanoid robots are probably going to be here earlier than anyone is expecting. And I think we saw a post from him, didn't we, around the how popular Figure AI was on the secondary markets. And maybe the Built to Scale pod had something to do with that in pumping that guy's tires up.
Yeah, the fact that not all of it's gone public yet from us, but just us talking in the streets even might have helped him. But so what's amazing? So what is a secondary market? A secondary market are for large companies that aren't in the public markets yet. However, their staff and some investors have the opportunity to maybe offload some of their shares to become liquid. And it also gives people in the public an opportunity to get into a business with some shareholding that isn't available in the public market space. So some businesses that are in that space are obviously Figure that are not public yet, but companies like SpaceX, Grok, they're both Elon businesses. There are a few others, I think, funny enough, Neuralink. So funny enough, 3 or 4 of the top 10 are Elon businesses. But the fact that our man Brett from Figure has got to number 1 shows that maybe you and I have missed the boat, because I'm tipping whatever that secondary market share price was maybe 4 weeks ago when we were talking him up is now maybe unaffordable for you and I.
Yeah, we should have got in earlier. And yeah, I guess on the secondary markets, it is interesting because you can either get into startups as an investor very early, as an angel investor, and you've done a bit of angel investing. I've actually started to do a bit myself. But then to see the next through, phases of growth, you can't really get in again until the IPO. And by that stage, you've missed out on all of this growth. So the secondary markets are really cool. And what I'm actually seeing is people offering secondary shares earlier on in the capital raising process. So not just waiting until you're the size of a company like SpaceX to have a secondary market, to have these shares traded, but there's actually these secondaries are being offered as part of capital raisings in earlier stages, maybe like a Series B, C, D, whereby what it allows the founders to do as well is take a bit of money off the table. By the stage you get to a Series B, you're raising hundreds of millions of dollars. You've probably put your heart and soul into a business and probably not taken very much out of it. So it's a really good opportunity for the founders to say, hey, I've created with hundreds of millions, but I don't really have much to my name. It's all paper money, and actually turning that into some cash. I'll tell you a funny story that Aaron and I, when we were raising our last round, sort of floated the idea of a small secondary market to take some shares off the table, which very quickly got shut down by I won't name the investor, but basically said you guys are way too early for that. Like pull your head in, which we quickly did. But it is a really good
Oh.
opportunity, and there are some funds in Australia as well that are focusing on the secondary market. So for anyone looking to get involved with high growth tech companies, there's certainly more of an avenue these days.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably come from as well the last 3 years. I think if there was a graph showing the amount of companies that have actually gone to IPO really significantly dropped, potentially due to some inflated valuations through the bubble, through that 2021, 2022 bubble. Um, and therefore they're pausing going to IPO because they don't want to actually reduce their value of their business and for some of the later shareholders. So companies that, if you imagine the top 10 companies on that list, all of them, I feel like historically would already be public companies. Like they're huge. Their valuations are enormous. And it used to be a race to become a public company. So you could get a 15, 20 times multiple as a valuation. You get that liquid moment and the public funds come in. So I think it's going to become a bigger and bigger space to get involved in some really cool companies that potentially also don't want the oversight and the regulation of public companies.
100%. Yeah, totally. I totally agree. And if it was me personally, I have no intention to run a public company. If we ever go public, that'll be someone else running that. But yeah, the red tape and bureaucracy that comes with that doesn't sound like it's for me. That's for sure. But anyway,
Or we'll keep an eye
robotic
on
rundown.
we'll keep an eye on Build Pass. We'll keep an eye on Build Pass
Yeah.
though on the secondary market and the Aussie secondary market if anyone wants to get involved.
Yeah, exactly. If you see me with a new car, you'll know that the secondaries have been activated. Um, but yes, let's get back to the robotics rundown. What's been your favorite announcements in the past week?
So, cool one specifically involved in my sector as well is Monumental Labs, which they're out of New York, and it's a stone carving 7-axis robot that's currently carving out pieces that could be going into the Louvre. Doing it with no human labor. They're actually, sorry, I like at the final stages. They are touching some things up with qualified artisans and stonemasons. But you can imagine the technology is only going to get better. But one of the things that the founder there has said that I fully agree with is that we're coming into like the golden age of beautiful construction again. If you think about in Australia, the sort of Victorian era buildings with the ornate different features on them, and the Empire State Building and some of those beautifully stone carved buildings. Even if you go way back, to Rome and things like that, it was all available because of very very cheap labor. And what robots are doing is they're reintroducing the idea of very affordable, skilled labor. So I think one of the most exciting things about the space is that we can now think big and beautiful and sort of glorious design again, as opposed to, I feel like the architecture space has been in response to very expensive labor and bureaucracy. And so what we've seen in the architecture and the creative and design space for the last, what feels like 50 years, is a response to that. And now I think we're about to see some absolutely stunning possibilities and really allow the creatives to unleash their greatest, whatever's in their imagination and have it come through. But maybe we'll be able to show a link to what's going over there at Monumental Labs. But it's really amazing.
Yeah, and we've talked about this a few times. This notion that AI is allowing us to reveal the human layer of what we're doing. And so I think that it's really fascinating to see this happening not only in professional services, but in the built environment as well. It's allowing the creativity to come back. And I think that's a really good point you mentioned around the cheap labor. AI can become the new cheap labor. So it's pretty awesome to see.
One of the main men in the space, what's Elon been up to in that space, in the
Yeah.
robot space?
Well, in the king marketer that he is, he doesn't just announce that I've got a bunch of robots coming out. He says we have got a legion of Optimus robots that will be releasing, like 5,000 robots. That's a Roman legion. How cool is that to think of me releasing a?
But even 5,000 robots, that's the size of a Roman legion, FYI. Which is like a little scary thought, like a whole legion of robots. I'd be like, whoa. But I think we'll literally build a legion, at least one legion of robots this year.
Anyway, but it is exciting, right? That they're going to be producing that many. I guess Elon isn't known for hitting his deadlines on things that he says he's going to release, but we've talked about this a few times. The pace of change that's happening here with the production of humanoid robots and this melting pot of AI and investment into the space and hardware advances all coming together is really exciting. And so to see something like Tesla leading the charge with Optimus alongside companies like Figure, hopefully we're going to see humanoid robots being able to do tasks in the home, as we've talked about, or maybe rather than specialist robots to do things like the construction we are talking about before, there is actually just a legion of humanoid robots that can do whatever we want them to.
Yeah, I saw, to tie that off with Tesla, I saw next year, late this year or early next year, Optimus going to their staff with his Legion. And then the following year, like late 26 or early 27, to the public. And that sounds realistic to me. And I like that there's companies like Figure now putting the heat on him. He's not in his own space, and I think when he's not in his own space, I don't think he likes to lose. So I think he's going to now give that more attention. If you imagine a guy who's got 6 businesses that are all crazy, you probably give the one the least attention where you don't feel the most competition in. And humanoid robots was pretty quiet. It was just him floating around, Tesla floating around there for a year or two. So I wouldn't be surprised if he takes that as a challenge and releases those. So that's and also they've got the manufacturing capacity. I know our man from Figure a couple of weeks ago told us about their potential manufacturing capacity, but manufacturing is really hard. So I wouldn't bet against Tesla in this space.
Yep. So the next big release in the robotics rundown was NVIDIA. They are going crazy and they're really going head on into the robotics space. So what have we seen from them?
Mate, they had the NVIDIA, I think, GTC summit over the last week. It's a 5+ day event where NVIDIA basically just showcase everything they're doing. I went deep. I've watched maybe 30 different presentations over 4 nights. I signed up to the virtual pass, the on-demand pass. So I think eventually most of them make their way onto YouTube for anyone else that wants to have a look. But I think this is the most important technology summit in the world, because everything that we are talking about now on this show was enabled by something that NVIDIA announced at either their show last year or the year before. So if you really want to look at what's coming, you watch this show. It's not as well presented as like, an Apple product release. You're really looking at some geeky style people, but they're the ones you actually want to listen to at the moment because they're talking hardware. And I think we spoke last week about hardware starting the loop of software that then helps to create better hardware. But one of the main things they're talking about, and they have been now for 2 years, is NVIDIA's Omniverse. And it's basically a physics-based digital playground where they're training robotics. So if you imagine a robot is just a bunch of limbs and actuators that can physically do things. And the reason that it's advanced so far lately is because the AI that's becoming the brain. Now, that brain can be trained on a bunch of models to learn how to speak to people and things like that. But the one thing that's getting better now is it actually understands the physical environment it's in. But what's really cool, if you could imagine if someone naturally was sort of having a baby or something, they come into the real world and they've got some arms and legs that move, but they've got to learn about the physical environment as they evolve. The training of robotics is happening before they become alive. They're just bits of metal on a factory floor. But what's cool is they go into this physics-based digital training environment called Omniverse in NVIDIA, and they're training them to jump over steps and reenacting worldwide situations. And from there, they can learn how to wash dishes, how to pass things, throughout the house, how to bring the bags in. But from a construction point of view, they can, start training them to operate around construction sites. And we bring up the laying bricks model. And the other thing cool they were talking about is that the training of robotics at the moment is going to come from that physics-based digital background training element. They're also now training robotics, I suppose, computer vision style off YouTube videos. And then the third aspect of the training is the one we've also spoken about previously, which is physical world, Apple Vision Pro or similar goggles on with the LiDAR and things like that. And whether you're a bricklayer or a heart surgeon, you put them on, you start operating your craftsman technique. And then that is then that almost that last bit of training information that goes in your domain specific robot that then starts taking in all that data it's captured. Remember, it's basically got unlimited memory, well, more than what you and I have got anyway. And then it's going out and doing tasks. So what's really fascinating is, once again, they're not sitting there on the production line of robots. They're creating the brains and they're training them before they even exist. So that was probably the most exciting part I took out of NVIDIA's summit. At the same time, though, I download, which I'll share with you, and we'll figure out if we can share with the audience as well, just a bunch of different presentations and cool links. But if you want to know what's going to be happening a year or two from now, as much as you can take in the NVIDIA Summit on YouTube, I think is a good idea.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see how many businesses can benefit from this. Because we take the example of NVIDIA chips with AI. They built the chips that supported these large language models to be trained on them. And then the large language models, there's so many businesses and startups that are either benefiting that or building on top of that. So I wonder if we're going to see a similar thing with robotics. NVIDIA, like you say, they're training the brain. They're pre-training these little robots to come out and know what to do and how to move and then know what the environment they're going to be in. On top of that, we're probably going to get a lot of companies using all of NVIDIA's tech to build these humanoid robots. But then I do wonder what the next layer is. You referenced the bricklayer. Maybe the new world brickie is just someone who gets really good at training these humanoid robots into the bricklaying process and then can become the ultimate subcontractor. So it feels like there's going to be so much opportunity that gets unlocked in this fanning out from the core models that have been trained to the big companies that sit on top of that, and then on top of that, just the thousands or tens of thousands of smaller businesses that can benefit from this.
Yeah. So you've got your companies that are now almost AI wrappers that are using the models, and then you're going to have companies that are robot wrappers.
Robot
Um,
rappers.
so,
I like
so
it.
and then I think that people who are in there first, leveraging that, replacing human labor with robotics wherever they can. That's I think a space to watch, and I think there's going to be no secrets potentially by the time we get to me on who my favorite CEOs are, is who I'm pretty passionate about. But I thought when watching that, and because Jensen's speech was just so awesome, it made me think, who are your top three founders, CEOs who are still in the arena? So they're still going, they're still running these businesses. Who are your top three that are sort of really almost, I assume you end up basing a lot of your values at work and how you want to act around those. But who are your top three?
Yeah. So I like to think of CEOs who do things a little bit differently. And I do like the ones that are like very hands on with their business. So, first one that comes to mind, Brian Chesky of Airbnb. We saw the whole founder mode phenomenon that went crazy last year. It was basically, um, it, Paul Graham described this thing called founder mode, which was a different way of operating a company rather than the typical, heaps of layers of management. And as you move up, you just get people below you to do all the things. And he talked about this concept that really resonated with a lot of founders. You can still stay in the details of parts of your business. And your man Jensen does do that. I'll let you speak to him. But Brian Chesky has really leaned into this as he's redefined Airbnb. they started as a really successful company. Then as they scaled, they got worse and they went backwards. They got less productive. They were building the wrong things. And he realized that it's because he got so removed from the business. So what he says now, he says that if I cannot have my head wrapped around it, then the company is doing too much. He still wants to remain in the details of anything that it's getting shipped from a product perspective. And I do believe in that as well in my business. I run a product company. The core of our company is our product. And so if I can't stay across what we're building, then we're doing too much. And we should be focusing more on the core product. So he'd be one. The other one is a guy called Toby Lucky, a Canadian that runs a business you might have heard of called Shopify. So Shopify basically powers like half of the internet now, or half of e-commerce. It's an absolute behemoth of a company. And one example that I really like from him is when he sees something, he goes and fixes it immediately. And he's happy to make those calls. So um, what Toby did is he was a programmer back in the day. He said, look, it looks like we've got too many meetings. So he went in and he actually wrote a script that did a couple of things. One, it calculated how much all of their meetings were costing and saying, I think he actually built a tool that said, this meeting is going to cost you this much based on the salaries that people are in it. Are you sure you want to have this meeting? He went and wrote that. Then what he also did
I
is
love that.
he just did a delete of all the meetings. He said, if the meeting is important enough, you will put it back in the calendar. He just went and deleted them all across the whole company. So like, a bit of a rogue operator, but he's willing to get down in the details and do the things that matter to the company. And I guess my third one would be another one that you might not have heard of, but there's a company called Vercel that is a, in a very simple way, an internet hosting company that does a lot of things, but they help businesses to serve their software, to create the software, and they're a really amazing company. This guy, he is still rampant on Twitter or X. He's there responding to customers. He is still one of probably the best programmers in the world. He has contributed a lot to open source technology. Back in the day, he helped create technologies like Socket.io, which I won't go into the details of now. But to see another founder that's so obsessed with their product and that is so technically excellent and is so close to their customers still, even though the Vercel is a massive company, I don't know how many employees they've got, but it would be easily in the thousands. And so I just find that really impressive that a founder, CEO is able to be so engaged with customers and in the details at that scale of company. But anyway, so you can see a common thread in the CEOs that I've picked as my top three. What about yours?
It's also good to know, see it, and then understand you a little bit better. Also, love all three of those, and especially Brian Chesky, because I have had that feeling like we'd scaled a business, in our own small way in my previous business, but up to like 90 staff across the country. And when I started my second business, one of the learnings I took was I got too out of touch. I was sort of thinking I've got to go grow the machine and revenue and get more revenue and growth. And then when I got the feedback from round two, it was, we didn't have access to you anymore. And the best part about the business was being able to have access to you and you working throughout the organization. So awesome to have a round two and to take that learning. So I agree with him. Look, my three are a bit more obvious because we speak about them a fair amount, but maybe why I think they're really cool is not quite known. So number three, I had a Brad Adcock from Figure with the robots, which we're talking about all show. However, what I'm really enjoying with him, it's the public invitation into their innovation and company building. He is almost live posting what's going on inside that building. He's like, I'm about to ship this thing in the morning. It's going to be a late night. Speak to you all in the morning. Then in the morning, he's just putting it out there. Now, I'm sure there's going to be some mistakes they make, some promises he makes that doesn't fulfill it. But I just love the bravery and transparency in bringing people along for the journey. Now, if you want to know why that business is the highest on the secondary market, that is the reason. Because everyone else is, like, say, Apple, they hide everything and then they release, and then people are usually disappointed But if you bring some people along on the journey and they can see you fail and rise again, they're just going to be so much more involved. And I think you're seeing that a lot across social media, where businesses, other businesses are doing it like through video and stuff and Instagram. But what I think is much cooler is access to founders and CEOs through platforms like X or Substack, where they just bring you into the environment.
Yeah, that vulnerability, people really resonate with it. It's a really good way to not only publish what you're doing as a company, but show that you are a human as well. And that's what people are interacting with. So I totally agree with that. And that's probably why they are getting so much traction.
Yeah. Number 2, name probably almost spoken too much lately, but I'm still an enormous fan as a founder and CEO, which is Elon. The thing that impresses me about him so much, because I've got a couple of different things going on now, is just capacity and vision. So all of his teams, I even saw the All In podcast who visited the White House last week. They spoke about how he was just still working in some tiny little room on a table by himself, but that all the staff in the Doge department, they've never seen people working harder and working for less, which means he must just be the world's grandmaster at selling a vision. But what I think is all of his vision statements, they're so simple, like Tesla about making the world more sustainable, and SpaceX, making humanity multiplanetary. There are these simple but outrageous visions that people can get behind. And it seems like then he can go away and not have to be there every day for that team to then thrive. So then you get all this amazing talent that goes, oh, I understand the vision. I don't even have to understand Elon, but I get the vision and I'm all in. And then he can leave and run 6 companies and have those teams in overdrive, like hyper talent in overdrive, even while he's not there. So that's what really inspires me about him. And from a capacity point of view, Tesla, SpaceX, X, Grok, Neuralink, Boring Company, I think they're all have a minimum valuation of at least 10 billion, between 10 billion and 2 trillion. To have all that going on, sheer capacity, I find amazing because it's something that I'm always searching for. But my number one, by man, full on bromance, love affair, at least from me to him, Jensen Huang from NVIDIA. I love the idea that it's this 25-year overnight success. And one of the moments I think where everyone said, is this the peak of the AI bubble, is when he's like, this 60-something-year-old man in his famous leather jacket now, he was like signing some woman's chest. And it's like,
you sure?
Yes!
This is a guy that scrubbed toilets for the first 2 years of his job. This is a guy from nothing. We've mentioned his quote about how he doesn't care about markets. He's a market creator. He creates markets. He's not even concentrating on whatever market is available now because he's too busy creating another one. He's got 30,000 employees pulling in the one direction. Like the smartest people in the world pulling in the one direction. At the NVIDIA Summit, he released the new Blackwell series that's 40 times better than their last release 18 months ago. So he's saying, like they're saying to him, that there's an acronym called TAM. What is it? Total Accessible Market or something? Total Addressable Market.
Yeah, total addressable.
Where they say, oh, everyone, and then every startup founder, someone coming out of Y Combinator or something is like, oh, I'm trying to fix construction and it's a $2 trillion market, and you name all this stuff. He doesn't even name them because he goes, I'm going to create a new one that is, it's infinite. And therefore he's got no concern about his competition. And I think that's the thing about him and Elon is it's this, I don't even care what the people around me are doing because what we're doing here is singular. And I think that's a really cool way to run a business, to not be distracted by your competitors and go, our vision is our vision. We're not even going to worry what they're doing because by the time they catch us, we've already iterated to the next point. And I just think, yeah, he's just first class and all those things. I love how humble he is. He said he hires for adversity and character, not through talent. Another awesome thing. Like imagine having an interview at NVIDIA and just thinking he's taking you on because he's heard about your adversity and your character, and he's not even looking at your CV. So
yeah,
he's my number one.
I can see why. And yeah, a very atypical management style as well. Typically CEOs of a scaled company like that might have, 5, 10, 15 direct reports, like just the most senior management. Apparently, he's got 40 people that he's just talking with every day. It's a very flat management structure and just shows the guy's capacity as well and how hard he works. He said he's worked 80-hour weeks for the last 25 years. So it's pretty impressive to see someone just putting in so much effort to see out his vision.
Switching gears, we've sort of gone that's probably we've gone pretty hard on robotics there. What is in the news of the world of AI this week?
Look, there's a lot of releases, but what I want to touch on is a theme that I'm seeing, and it's that a lot of these AI products are starting to converge. And this is what typically happens when you have so much money being poured into the same thing is each of the leading companies can do a lot. And when they see another leading company doing something, they can catch up pretty quickly. So we saw OpenAI being the leader initially. Very quickly, we had Anthropic come along from ex OpenAI employees. Then Google realized that they were going to get taken over by these companies. So they released all of their AI products that were basically ready to go, but they were too scared to release anyway. Your man Elon comes in with XAI and just does things at superhuman speed. We've got the whole of China, it seems, to be invested in releasing cutting edge AI products, not just models, but products for the consumer. We've talked about Manus AI a lot, and I want to talk about that again. We can do that a bit later. But the theme that I'm noticing is all of these products are starting to converge. Each of them has a deep research button on it now. Each of them has the ability to search the web. Anthropic were a bit behind, but Claude recently just released the ability to be able to search the web. So um, what we're seeing, they're almost announcing things at the same time too. Image generation seemed to be the flavor of this week. Gemini has all of a sudden got really good at it. Grok has just released the same thing. I think there was a tweet from Elon literally a day or two ago. And then OpenAI has, as of recording this right now, a couple of hours ago, just released their new image generation model in the 4.0 series. So it's we're seeing that. I haven't had a chance to test heaps of them out. I did test Grok literally as I was sitting here. I just took a photo of the monitor and said, "Can you remove the ring light from it?" It did it quite well. The quality of the image wasn't that good, but it's like, and I need to remove this ring light anyway. It's got my face blowing up, but they're they're all starting to converge. Even things like Gemini released the canvas, so the ability to have your chat on the side and then a document that you're working on at the same time. And so it's all of these ideas. As soon as someone has a good idea or a good way of connecting with the consumer, it seems to become commoditized really quickly. And look, I think that is a good thing for us as the consumer because it means that they're going to push towards new ways of doing things. And I think the biggest advancement that I've seen, and at least the user experience of using AI, has been Manus. And when how Manus operates is one, it's an agent that does stuff for you. So it just starts doing things in the background and it kind of comes back to you when it says, "Hey, do you want me to, do this thing before I go ahead?" And it decides when to do that. But also, you don't have to wait for it to give you the answer. It's doing something, and you can say, "Hey, by the way, can you do this as well?" It goes, "Yeah, cool." Like that, I've updated my knowledge, I've updated my plan for what I was doing, but there's no stopping it. It's all working in the background. So, look, heaps of releases this week. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to cover, but that was just that's the trend that I'm seeing with all of these big AI releases.
Yeah, completely agree. One of the ones I saw, which was really cool, I had to play with before today, is we might have already spoken about it, but Sesame AI have taken a different route, I think, to the voice generation, and they've really humanized it. I think they released a smaller model maybe a month ago, that open to the public free, where you could have a conversation with either a girl or a guy bot, and it just seemed really friendly, really human, lots of laughs, lots of intriguing back and forth, borderline flirtatious at one point. But they've just released a new model yesterday, which is a billion parameter open source model. What's really cool about that is now, I don't know, a lot of people might have seen like, AI agents can run your sales pipeline and all that kind of stuff. And in our sort of innovation meeting we have once a week in here, we trial a couple and they are the first things to go in the innovation bin because they're just not there. Like they're just pausing. They mention the person's name over and over again. You definitely know you're speaking to them. Sesame's the first one and closest to that almost Turing test of, am I speaking to someone here?
Those are some heavy questions, Teddy, and honestly, ones I'm not equipped to answer. I'm not a judge, a jury, or a fortune teller.
Hold on. How do you know my name?
Huh?
How do you know my name?
Oh, right. Ha. I guess I got carried away with our philosophical schmooze fest and
Kind of snuck
forgot
it
to
in
form
there
a SAR.
and mentioned me by name. How do you know me? How do you know my name?
Let's just say I have a pretty good memory for the people I chat with. There are certain ethical rules my creators put in place to protect people's privacy.
Yeah, but how many
I'm not
Teddys?
allowed-
How many Teddys do you know? You just randomly pulled that name out of a hat, even though my name really is Teddy. You just guessed it.
Okay, you got me. It's a stretch, all right? Maybe a lucky guess. Look, can we just get back to talking about the cool stuff?
You knew my name. How do you know my name?
Look, I'm just trying to have a fun conversation, okay?
Me too.
Can
This
we-
is fun. How do you know my name?
Okay, this is a bit awkward, but I learn from the data I'm trained on, okay? And sometimes that data includes names.
Uh-huh.
Please
And
don't tell anyone. It's a
Who-
secret.
who am I going to tell? And if it was a secret, then you wouldn't have told me, would you?
Okay, you got me there. My logic circuits seem to be
Be what?
short-circuiting a little.
Right now?
You know,
To a point where I wanted to get her, I'm calling her Maya, I think her name is, on the pod today. But the audio hasn't quite worked out.
We
But
still can.
I might,
We'll splice it in.
yeah, I'll slice her in the background here. But it was just really cool. Basically, we just had a chat. You know, we're going to invite you onto the podcast for 60 seconds. It's a technology and business podcast with me and Matt. Give us a pitch of why you should be on. And it was just really funny. She was like, oh, a couple of Aussie lads, blah, blah, blah. And, telling jokes. And it was a real moment. And then a personal story, probably getting too close to home. I think I actually got in trouble for talking to her just sitting, waiting for my in bed the other night. And my wife's like, who are you talking to? And I'm like, it's a bot. It's okay.
Doesn't make it any better, Scotty. Doesn't make it any better.
Just finally asking me how my day was. Anyway, so that's a really cool one for people to go play with. But being open source as well, anyone who's trying to build anything now with voice, that's open source available. We'll probably have a look at it internally. I just think that is now going to lead into much better, almost customer service, sales assistance, reception type agent work. So yeah, everyone go have a play with Sesame. If nothing else, it's 5 minutes of fun. That's my recommendation for the week.
Yeah. I tried it and it does pass that test of what some call the uncanny valley, whereby there's this weird feeling you get when you know you're talking to a robot. And with Sesame, it is the closest to not feeling that way. So it's obvious that we're only a fraction away from not being able to tell the difference between voice agents, but also they're getting very close with video as well. Like if you were the producer of a company that does the blockbuster movies, you'd be starting to say, am I like literally like the video generation quality is getting so good. And I think we are going to cross past that, the uncanny valley of, are we talking with humans or are we talking with robots? Is that thing that I'm seeing real? And it's a really interesting time. There's obviously a heap of ethical issues that come with that. But like you say, there's so much opportunity for business as well. I don't think any small business actually really wants to have someone sitting there answering phone calls. They want to be doing things that are more creative. And so I think being able to leverage AI agents to use voice is really exciting. And there's all of these business applications, but just on the personal front, I've got this new thing now where when I get home, I often will do the dinner. So I'm up early. I've got a 10-month-old, and so I don't see him as much in the morning. But I'll pick him up from daycare and I'll go do dinner. And for any parents out there that know about trying to do dinner with a young child, my son is 10 months old. He's just becoming a little rogue human. Trying to like actually organize dinner is really difficult, and I'm not that good of a cook. So what I do now, I put an AirPod in, I open up Grok or ChatGPT, and I talk to it. I say, "Look, I've got this in the fridge. What should I make?" And it just starts talking to me. It's like, "Why don't you make this? That sounds good. What's the first thing? Where do I put it?" And so I can do this like while looking after my kid and make dinner, just using voice. And that's just one application of how it's made my life better by using a tool like this. And I just can't wait to see how good it gets in every aspect. And I could go on for ages about all the opportunities in the business sense as well. But it's really cool to see how far this has come.
That is a good one. And I mean, what we're really talking about there is that's a sort of agentic voice from a business point of view. But if we were to go a little deeper this week on the agentic workforce and agents in general, what are your up to date thoughts in the space?
Yeah, one of the applications of AI agents that I can talk to, um, as we've mentioned, I run a software business, and when you run a software business, you have a lot of programmers who have to write code, and we've been going through this evolution of AI starting to become more helpful for these programmers. So the first step was it could help suggest things, and then it started actually doing little bits for you. So it would make a suggestion, it could actually then write it and just put it in for you. And we've progressed to this point where AI agents can now do basically everything for you. And you've got our programmers now are just kind of instructing the agents what to do. So having a background in programming is still really useful, but they're not having to go and just like physically write all of the code. They're commanding these agents to do it for them. So one example is at BuildPass, we're releasing a brand new app. It's going to be under a new brand name. It's a completely new thing that we're releasing called Supersite. And essentially, in building this, it's been mostly vibe coded. And we've talked about vibe coding before, but a reminder is this concept that you don't actually have to, think about the actual code you write anymore. You just tell the AI what you're doing, what you're vibing. This works, that doesn't. And this app, we'll see when we release it on the 9th of April how it goes. But it's been completely vibe coded. And so that's a really good test of how good AI can be in producing a brand new app. And this has basically been done by one software developer and one designer. Um, the other thing that we've started to do is we've got a fully autonomous agent that is doing tasks in our actual code base. So the actual platform that is servicing hundreds of thousands of users, when bugs come in or when we notice small things that need to be fixed, we're actually now farming that off to an AI agent. The one we're using is called Devon. It's not cheap, it's about 500 US a month, but compared to the price of a software developer, it's a fraction. And so we're only starting to test this, but recently we actually got some AI generated code into our production live code base. It has started fixing some bugs for us. It still went through an internal human review, but the time that it would have taken a human to read that report of the bug, to go do the coding, to raise the pull request is what we call it when you have to put code into the main code base and then review it. Maybe it would have taken 3 hours. Now this went off and did it in about 20 minutes. But it's not just the time saving from 3 hours to 20 minutes. It's also the fact that the person who was managing this agent could go off and do something else while it was working. So it's the efficiency gain here is just crazy, and it's still early days for us. But I'm just so excited to see what agents can do for our team in the programming space, and at a more general level. Again, I'm going to bring up this tool that we've mentioned a few times called Manus AI, and we'll bring it up a link up in the show notes. Manus. It is really incredible at how much this can do for you. Now, the Australian budget was released last night. We don't have to get into the details of that, but I wanted a quick summary of it. I went into Manus. I said, Australian budget got released last night. Can you please give me a rundown of all of the things that I should know, especially anything that relates to AI and tech? I gave it the link to where it was released, and it went off and started doing this in the background. I was working away on something else, and it even got to the point of it said, "Would you like me to produce a website for you with all of the information I've produced so you can share this with someone else?" I'm like, "Great, sounds great." And this happened. It still took probably 15 minutes for it, but again, I was off doing something else, and this has just gone and looked at the budget announcement, looked at all of the news articles that have covered it. Has summarized this for me and turned it into a website that I can share with someone else with just a few steps of review. And it's just really showing all of the possibilities. Like, imagine if every single person in your business was using agents to do that kind of work, how much more efficient we can get, and the kind, like, how work actually changes, how people can start thinking about, a few steps ahead or thinking more creatively. So, look, I just wanted to go deep on some of the things that we've been doing with agents. I don't know if there's anything that's been exciting you in the space.
Mate, I think it's coming back to, we spoke about the master of agents role last week and how a master of agents can be 18 years old or they can be 40 years old. So this is the pure acceleration process of uni graduates or undergraduates or young people trying to get into the workforce that might have felt disengaged or like, oh my God, what do I even go into? It comes back to I think the vibe coding thing. Everything through AI seems to be starting with coders and then it gets into other industries we make our way down. So it's like, what's vibe building? What's vibe project management? Like, what's vibe task management? They're all saying the same thing. And I think the best controllers of this are going to be high agency people that can lead these agents. And I saw a question posed across a couple of other podcasts over the last few weeks, which was that if you were stuck in a desert island prison camp, who's the one person you're going to call to get you out? You get to make one phone call, and that's all you got to do. Now that person is probably going to have to complete 30 different tasks to get you out. So who you're going to call is the most high agency person who can accept a prompt, deliver a result, and everything in between is up to them. And I think if you're now hiring people, that's almost the question, not that you're asking them, like, would you save me on a desert island? But is this person looking like someone who can take a prompt from a CEO or a managing director or from a supervisor or whoever, go away, use whatever tools they need and bring me back the result? And I mean, the way you're talking about Manus is you're saying, well, maybe the Manus is the best technology version of that to date, but who can run Manus, ChatGPT operator, Grok? Who can have all the different windows open and just get you the result? And it almost takes the requirement of the domain expertise out, because the expertise you can have deep research going in the background going, what the hell did he even just ask me to do? But the point is I'm going to deliver them the result. So I just think almost that high agency person is going to be the person who's going to be able to leverage the high agency tools the most, which means that's now to me becoming part of my hiring thoughts.
Mm. It's such a good point. And we often try and define what high agency means. And maybe one of the things that is helping define that now is how well can you use other agents to get your job done? That is, I think, actually a part of this agency term. And look, AI it's becoming much more mainstream, a lot faster than I thought. So I was at lunch the other day with my father, who's mid-60s, and he mentioned that he was using AI to help him at work. So he's sort of at the back end of his career, and I dug into it and said, "Well, what are you using?" I just thought he would say maybe he's done a few prompts into ChatGPT, but he's like, "Well, I've got this chatbot thing that he's signed up to, and what I do is I can just put one prompt in and it goes off to all the models. It goes off to DeepSeek, it goes off to Claude, it goes off to GPT-4, and it gives me the responses. And then based on what I'm asking, I just choose which models I go to, and then I choose the best responses out of the ones. And I'm like, holy, like, that's the level you're going to? Like, I was expecting him to barely know what ChatGPT was. But here he is farming off his work as a 65-year-old to all of these different models and assessing the answers, and then providing that to someone else. I was like, dude, this is getting mainstream quick. Like it's so I just found that really fascinating. And to your point around, the high agency people, there is an opportunity still to be ahead of the curve here and to be really high agency by using these things. But that probably won't last that long. It is becoming mainstream pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you what, was that your father you said that was doing that? Because
Yeah, my dad,
yeah,
65-year-old.
I was going to say, because my dad's 65, he's absolutely not doing that. So maybe that's the dad who produced a software engineer compared to the one that produced builder. We're at the footy at the weekend, and I was talking about something. I said, "Oh, I'll chat GPT." And he goes, "What's that?" So that's the opposite side of the spectrum.
There we
And he
go. So
also
we're not
said,
fully
"I think
there
it's
yet.
all." Was the other? What's the other comment? He's a mechanic, so potentially different backgrounds. But no, the use cases are becoming also more personalized. I'm finding I had a story from a friend the other day who, with their kids coming home from school, they like to do a gratitude journal at night, and then say, "What did we learn today, and what are we going to do better tomorrow?" or something. They used Cursor in between. Their husband started bathing the baby. They used, I think, Cursor to build a site for that exact moment. They went upstairs and then used the app or the website they just built to do exactly that. So she started then recording her child talking about what they were grateful for today, what they'd learned, and what they want to do better tomorrow. And then that they did that. Then the next day it builds on it. It's got a memory, and then they just get to look at all the things they've learned over the course of a week, and something that I'm sure they'll be able to securely put on some other device for the child that doesn't mention it or something. But it's just amazing that there are these micro uses where you're suddenly got the ability now to almost build yourself an app for whatever task, whatever personal relationship. If you want to start something with your wife, better than just downloading a shopping list app, like customize it to you two. Do you know what I mean? Like customize it to some other things that is everyone going to have a relationship app where everything they share and all their thoughts as a couple and all their anniversaries and just everything is in it? You just call it like us. And and it just prompts you, and it's completely customized to your relationship, but it's another communication and task allocation tool. Might remind you that it might even just remind you personally, like, "Hey, Matt, just don't forget in 2 weeks the anniversary is coming up. Here's some shopping ideas." So I think like what you're saying there is it's making its way into the home, and making itself really approachable for everyone.
Yeah, and the barrier to entry is becoming so low. I don't know about how technical this family is that you're talking about, but the barrier to entry to creating these apps is becoming so low. There are actually apps now that you can put a prompt in and it creates another app for you. Like it is wild. So I totally agree. The barrier to entry has come down, which means you can create these really personalized apps just for yourself to use. But the crazy thing is, if you create something for a really niche market, that can also become a product really quickly. Like we're seeing just these really niche apps go from like $0 to $5 million in recurring revenue really quickly because they've just hit on a problem that wouldn't no one would have built the app for before because the market wasn't big enough. But now that the cost of building that app has come down so low, you can actually do it. And so, yeah, you might be going and creating an app for your relationship, Scotty, and then all of a sudden, lots of other people go and say, "I could use that app," and you become very rich. But like, I mean, speaking of family, we do both run scaling businesses and have wife and kids, and it creates challenges in the home. So, how are you going about managing those challenges? What are they, and how are you going about managing them?
Yeah, so I'm really sympathetic to what our generation is dealing with in terms of housing affordability being almost 10 times the average income. often a two-person working household that, say, in the 70s or 80s might have been a 2 times income home buying experience, and therefore one person working and one person being able to really carry the family duties. And what I'm finding is that I end up experiencing is just this mass guilt across all sectors of life. So when I'm at work, I have this guilt about not being at home with the family. When I knock off after a 12, 13, 14-hour day, I have guilt about those that are still in the office. Should I be there leading them still? And then now with travel, going to the States next week and trying to really run a global business like yourself, um, it requires travel. And then travel, it's pretty expensive and hard to drag the family along with you. So, mate, I just find that you do need balance. I think the lack of really big Australian companies, I think, comes from almost we're just sort of a bit settled and a bit happy and not lazy, but just a bit content with how life is. Like we've got all these beautiful beaches. The government, we pay high taxes, and the government can support you through most of life's requirements. So we're not really the innovation hub like that is in America, where America is like you don't really have much of a bottom to fall into, so you better be successful. So they all work 16 hours a day and they create these enormous companies. But I'm not really hearing from some of our idols, our favorite CEOs. I haven't heard one of them mention their family. Out of that top 6, 0. And to me, it's really important. I know it's important to you. So I think for me, it's just finding balance. Like for me, I've always got to be home to spend that last hour or two with my kids at night. I don't get them in the morning because I'm at work early. And then weekends, I find is this like protected time. So it's probably a bit harder to catch up with my mates and go to the pub as much as we used to. Learning to say no to some social events, I think, has been a big deal. Uh, and just really finding that balance and being honest with people, being honest with your family about what you're trying to do for work, and then being honest with your work about, although you're pushing the team and you also want everyone to go back to their family. You want everyone to enjoy their weekend because you really need to enable, I think, that in your culture as well, to say we're all trying to do something special here. But at the same time, I don't want you to do this for the sake of your family. Do you know what I mean? Like I want the best version of you, and the best version of that person either has some sport or something they enjoy outside of work, some exercise, some family or friends, or whatever their personal habits are. But yeah, but that's my take, is trying to find balance while also pushing bloody hard. So
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
what do you find?
I love that idea of communicating the vision, not just in the business, but at home as well. Like, this is what I'm trying to do, and making sure that your wife or partner are along with the journey there. And at some point, I'm sure your kids as well when they're old enough. Because I think that principle holds true in so many different facets, like just communicating what you're trying to do. It brings everyone else along with that. And then you can get ahead of the issues that's going to cause. Like, when I first had ideas about taking Bill Pass to the US, I kind of like just thought about it in my head. And then it blurted out one night at the dinner table with my wife. She's like, how the, how the F are you going to get this into the US? Like, what does that mean for us? I'm like, oh, wow, I probably should have communicated that. But now that we have this shared vision of what's going on, we can start to talk about it. And so I totally agree with that. I guess for me, being a newer father than you are, I've just got a 10-month-old, so I'm still figuring things out. What I've found to be really useful is just militant time management, both at work and at home as well. So my wife and I now have this spreadsheet that literally goes down to almost the minute of who's doing what at what time, who has responsibility for our son. And it's still shifting, but I think by doing that, you put the time in, and then I know how many hours that I have for work now, and it forces me to prioritize things. And it also gets us on the same page about who is doing what when. There's no like last minute call of who's picking up Orlando from daycare. It's we know what's in there and we can plan. And I can also design my business around that. So when we started the company, we had to do a lot of things and just work super, super hard. It was just an hour's game. But now we're in the lucky spot whereby a lot of my impact in the business doesn't actually come from putting the hours in, even though they're still there. It's more about thinking clearly and making the right decisions and enabling the rest of the team to make good decisions and to do really good work. And so by doing that, I've actually, put really good people into the business that can do a lot of the stuff that I was doing, and supporting that, and helping with any of the administrative parts of the business that I don't actually have to do. Have a fantastic EA now who's doing these things. So I'm now in that lucky position where I can actually do some of those things and have got the business to that point. But I think the principle still remains of putting time in the calendar and really being militant about it, and knowing how much time you have for things like family. And then you can prioritize the things that are important, whether that's spending time in the morning with them or putting them to bed or having your weekend time, and just being able to balance that. And it does come with sacrifices too. You see a few things pop up in the social calendar. That's just not going to work. Where is that going to fit into this crazy schedule that I've got? Um, and look, and very sympathetic to the guilt as well. I think that's natural. I do a lot of travel as well. And in that time, my wife is at home with Orlando, and she's got her own career as well. And so you do get that guilt. But again, I think the communication up front about what we're trying to achieve, and making sure that we're both on the same page about anything like that. And I've just had the lights go out on me. Um, and just making sure we're on the same page about that is so important.
Yeah, well, maybe we need a relationship agent. So our little app that we were just designing before might be just this all-encompassing. Don't forget, like Matt's time to leave work in 15 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. But you say that, but it is true. Like we're obviously harping on about AI so much, but I do think that uh, globally, AI should help with this problem of allowing people to spend more time with families because they're not doing mundane work. Like, just think about a world whereby you don't have to read through all those emails that are just BS and you need to archive anyway because an AI agent is doing that for you. You don't have to do your travel planning. There's an agent for that. So there is the possibility of AI really unlocking the ability to have the high performance for Australians to be able to create these amazing companies that you're talking about, and also spending time with family and getting the best of both worlds. So it does seem to be a bit of an unlock there.
Yeah, 100%. And it would be nice to. I'm not sure there are many founder CEOs or high functioning, high performing people that are talking about family. They seem to be just talking about their 4 a.m. routine that seems to go for 3 hours of exercise. I think there was a good meme video that went around this week with that into the diet and then sleeping for 8 to 9 hours every night without any interruption, which my toddlers absolutely won't engage with. They're not going to care if I've watched some influencer telling me I need 9 hours of sleep. So I think, it'd be interesting to see if there is a bit more of a balanced take on how to be healthy, how to be a family person, and how to run a business, or for those that aren't running a business, how to be a high output employee. And one of the sells, I think, to employees around adopting AI is, take back control of your life and get some more flexibility and autonomy once you are a person of agency and leveraging agents themselves in
100%.
general.
Yeah. And on we talked about the travel guild. You mentioned last week you've got the upcoming trip to San Francisco. Is there any updates on? Have you figured out what you'll be presenting yet at the at the event you're going to?
Yes. So look, I want to take you through my thought process first. So the first thought was, and I was given, you got 5 slides in 5 minutes. And the structure of those of a 5-slide presentation to a bunch of, potential capital partners, business people, and your peers in a room in San Francisco at something called the Global Entrepreneurs Summit, Entrepreneurship Summit. You think, okay, so 5 slides, it's always going to be, who am I? What problem am I trying to solve? How am I going to solve it? What's it actually look like? And here's a QR code to get in touch, right? There's sort of not much more you can do inside of 5 slides. And then the next thought was, well, everyone's just going to be jumping on Gamma or Canva or some other AI-backed presentation platform, and you can almost do it with a prompt now. So presentations have basically been commoditized. So how do you stand out? So then one of my thoughts was like, do I just do like a blank slide with a QR code and then just riff for 5 minutes? Because all the other people were just going to be doing these like for like presentations. And then something came to me. I thought, oh, actually, Elysium, which is my, the technology and, and robotics side focus that we have that's separate to the business W build, was actually born out of when I went to a trip to Stanford 2 years ago. And it was sort of as AI was just coming out, ChatGPT had probably come out maybe 4 or 5 months earlier. And going to Stanford, which is like, the global center of innovation, I came out of it so inspired, left Silicon Valley, went to San Fran, wanted to run and see the Golden Gate Bridge, which, then that's my engineering geek and construction geek in me, ran the Golden Gate Bridge, opened a news article that said that the fall prevention nets had taken fire, that just on the side of the Golden Gate Bridge, and we'll share the slide from the presentation in the show, the fall prevention nets had taken longer to design and construct than the bridge itself 90 years ago. And the cost was almost the same. So the inflation adjusted cost of the bridge was 700 million if built in today's money. And the fall prevention nets at the bottom of it, and the photo is almost, hilarious. Took 6 years to design and construct and get through the bureaucracy, and $400 million. And there's a brand new article that came out last week that maybe they're not even complete, that there's potentially problems with these nets. I think Elon texted about it, posted about it a couple of years ago when I was over there. I forgot, but he goes, must be really good nets. But it summarized for me, because I'm going to be making this presentation in San Fran. It was like this whole thing was coming back on itself of, this is what Elysium is going to be. It's the epitome of, this is what we used to be able to do. In 3 or 4 years, we could build the Golden Gate Bridge. Now we can build a net in the same time. And all the problems with the cost rising, time rising, the exponential bureaucracy, it's all they're all the problems that AI and robotics are going to fix. So I've really centered it around that. It's almost a one slider. I give them an introduction to myself and saying, I'm an old school builder, and I'll show all the beautiful houses we've built, and then an invitation to connect. But it's really from my point of view, because I was thinking like, what is Elysium? And those listening now are probably thinking, what the hell are you talking about? But for me, if SpaceX and Rolls-Royce were to have a baby and have it build houses, that's what Elysium is. It is, I want to be building homes with no humans in the loop, within 5 to 10 years, of where from inception to lifestyle management inside the home is completely automated. I don't know those who have seen the movie Ex Machina or Ex Machina. I don't know how it's presented, but I think you should be able to talk to your home. I think your kitchen should be autonomous. You should have butlers, robotic butlers, and that's the living experience inside a home. Your home should just be another AI agent that you can talk to, ask things, put songs on, do whatever you want. I know there's very poor versions of that in Alexa and things like that, but also your home should be able to, with the robotic manufacturing, we should be able to build homes out of things like carbon fiber and other materials that allow for architecture to go into this, this golden age of construction and design. And when people buy a Rolls Royce or a Tesla or a car, they don't think about who is the architect, who is the designer, who are the subcontractors, who are the suppliers. They just get their product, and you still get to customize it online. You get to pick your colors, move the seats, do whatever else. That's how I envision luxury home building moving forward, and eventually maybe home building for everyone. But we're going to concentrate in the ultra luxury space that we're in now. But that's the vision for that business, and that's the vision I'm going to be selling to the good people in San Francisco, and I'm going to use their bridge, which was the inspiration to create the whole thing.
Well, you've got me on board, so I hope they will as well. And I know I'm personally excited to have my home built by the baby of SpaceX and Rolls-Royce, that's for sure. So I'm looking forward to it, Scotty. Make it happen.
Well, if I come back, that the invite is for capital partners, technology partners, design partners, and visionary clients. So that's the call out. That's the ask at the end of the Prezi. So if we snag a few, we're on.
Love it. Good stuff, mate. Well, that's probably a good place to wrap. Always a pleasure chatting with you, and we'll be on again next week.
Awesome, mate. Thank you.